How's everybody doing tonight? So this is something I call the 15-minute Spanish lesson. Of course, it's impossible to teach anybody anything in 15 minutes, let alone Spanish. Very difficult to do, takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. Okay? But this is a brief overview, and it can have you speak in Spanish in 15 minutes. So how do we express action in English? We use a gerund, right? In Spanish, it's called a gerundio. It's a more difficult way to say speaking in ing verbs, right? What are you doing? I'm talking. What are you doing? I'm running. What are you doing today? I'm running around doing some errands, right? Those are gerunds. We speak in the ing form. Okay? So, in Spanish, ing is either ando or yendo, depending on the verb endings in Spanish. Okay? And how do we know a verb is a verb in Spanish? Because they end in three ways. One of three ways. They are AR verbs, IR verbs, and ER verbs. These are the verb endings. So for instance, to speak, hablar. We know that's a verb because it ends in AR. There's only one of three ways. Okay? Ir, ir. That's actually to go in Spanish too. But we're going to use repetir, to repeat. To speak, to repeat. In ER, we're going to say to run, is correr. Okay? That's to run in Spanish. So those are three infinitive verbs. And what do I mean by an infinitive verb? In English, the infinitive of I ran is to run. This is to speak, to repeat, to run. Those are the infinitives. The bad news is there's 103 ways to conjugate a verb in Spanish. So there's 103 ways to say to speak. Hablo, hablas, hablan, hablamos, he hablado, hemos hablado. There's 103 ways to say it. He speaks, I speak, you speak, they will have spoke. So there's 103 ways to say it. That's the bad part of Spanish. And the easy part of English, right? Because when we say to run, right? We just say he ran, she will run. Easy for us because we're native English speakers, okay? Spanish a little different. The easier part of Spanish is that it's phonetic. It sounds the same way all the time. In English, it doesn't, right? Because how do you explain to somebody how the D in cordial should sound like a J, and that's why it sounds like a J? Very difficult, right? Because there's always exceptions in English. Spanish, there's some exceptions, of course. In anything, there's always exceptions. But Spanish is more of kind of a straight line when it comes to the sounds. Very phonetic. Okay? So, you see over here, ando, that's ing in Spanish. So for AR verbs, you take the ending, which is AR, right? And you turn it into hablando. You just took to speak and made it a gerundio. Speaking is hablando. Okay? Now, along those same lines, IR, ER verbs turn to yendo. So to repeat is repetir, right? How would you say repeating in Spanish? Repitiendo. Because we took the IR off and added yendo, right? So it's repitiendo. That's repeating in Spanish, right? Now, ER verbs follow the same paradigm, okay? Correr is what? Corriendo, okay? And you trill the R's, right? Because it's a double R, not a single R. And you only do it in the very beginning. If the word begins in R, you can trill the R. Trill the R is repitiendo, corriendo, okay? Because sometimes you make the mistake, because this is a word right here, right? C-A-R-O, it's caro, because it's expensive. That's what it means. Now, if you added another R in the middle, that would be carro, and that would be a vehicle, a car, okay? So that's the only time you trill the R's is when it's in the middle, the very beginning, or at the end. Repetir, you could trill the R at the end. So we're turning all these words into ing form, right? How would you say I am speaking? Because we got hablando down, that's just speaking. But how do you say I am? Okay. Another unfortunate thing about Spanish is there's two verbs to be. In English, we just say, I am Johnny, I am tall, I am in New York, I am sick, I am well. Not like that in Spanish. There's two verbs to be in Spanish. One that indicates lasting qualities. That indicates lasting qualities is ser. That's the infinitive. I just wrote soy. That's I am. Okay, so ser is lasting qualities. That's I'm tall. My name is Johnny, right? You would never use the other verb to be, which is estar. That's for locations and temporary feelings. If you're in a geographical area, you would use estar. If you're sick, it's a temporary feeling, you would use estar. But if you would say, I'm Italian, you would use ser, because it's lasting qualities. So what we first have to do is, I told you, 103 conjugations of the verb. What we first have to do is conjugate these verbs. These are the infinitives. To be, right? This is lasting qualities. This is temporary situations and locations. So we'll just say I am, right? I wrote it down before mistakenly. Soy. You are. Eres. He is. Es. Okay? We are. Somos. We are Italian. Now the fourth one is son. Are. So this is and this is are. So the color is white. The roses are red, right? Those are lasting qualities. It's never going to change. A color is the color of the flower. So this is I am. You are. He, she, or it is. They are, or we are, right? And this is they are. So this is we. Somos is we. So if I were to say, if a group of Italian people, somos italianos. We are Italians, right? But if you were to say, we are a group of Italian people in New York, we would say, somos italianos y estamos in Nueva York. Okay? So now for estar, and this is the one we're concentrating on here, because this is how we're going to put everything into action today. So estar is I am, which is estoy. It's an irregular verb. If it couldn't make any matters more difficult with the verbs in Spanish, there's irregular verbs too. Now, this is estás. That's you are. Está. He, she, or it is. Same format. These are lasting qualities. This is temporary feelings, temporary moods. You would say, if you don't feel good today, you would say, estoy mal, no estoy bien. Or if you're sad, estoy triste, I am sad. Okay? And then estamos and están. They are. You see how it follows the same pattern? I am, I am. You are, you are. He is, or he, she, or it is, he, she, or it is. Right? But this is for lasting qualities. Soy blanco, I am white. Soy alto, I am tall. Okay? But I'm not feeling well. No estoy bien. I'm in New York. Estoy en Nueva York. Right? These are temporary locations, temporary feelings. So when I'm going to ask somebody what they're doing today, I wouldn't use ser. It's a lasting qualities. I'm saying, what are you doing right now? It's a temporary state, right? So you would use estar. So don't worry about this for what we're doing today. We're trying to ask questions about what are you doing, and you're trying to have a response. This is what I'm doing. So the first thing to ask is, what are you doing? So how do you say what in Spanish? You would use que, right? That's what in Spanish. We all know that. It's pretty basic, rudimentary, right? Now, what we have to do is go over to this verb, which is estar. If you're asking somebody, what are they doing? You would say, ¿Qué estás? Second person. ¿Qué estás? What are you? And now we want to go doing. We know ing is yendo, but what is the verb to make or do in Spanish? Very important verb. One of the most important verbs in Spanish. It's hacer. Very important verb. That's how you tell the weather. That's how you would tell somebody how the weather is. How you would say, like, ago, so many years ago, you use this verb. And this is also to make or do. It's a very versatile, very important verb in Spanish. Hacer. So, we see that hacer ends in er, right? It's a verb. Because a verb in Spanish ends in one of three ways. Er, ir, or er. Okay? So now, you have to take this off and add ing if you want to ask somebody what they're doing. So you would say, ¿Qué? What? In Spanish. Are you, second person, you, doing? ¿Qué estás haciendo? Right? Because here, we see it's yendo. The end of an er verb. ¿Qué estás haciendo? So you already learned something in Spanish. You just learned how to ask somebody, what are they doing? Okay? ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? Now, what we have to do after that is, we have to know some verbs in Spanish, right? So, let's say somebody's cooking. The verb in Spanish, to cook, the infinitive, is cocinar. That is to cook. Okay? We know it's a verb. Why? Because it ends in AR. And if it ends in AR and it's a verb, it's an infinitive verb. It's not yet conjugated. And all we're concerned about today is making this say cooking. So it ends in AR. We add ando. We take off the AR and add ando. So it's cocinando. Right? There it is, cooking. And then, when you're asking somebody, ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? The person will answer you in the first person. Estoy cocinando. I am cooking. What are you doing? I am cooking. What am I doing right now? ¿Qué estás haciendo? Estoy hablando. I am speaking. So that's how we teach people the very rudimentary level Spanish, is turning verbs into ing verbs so you can ask somebody what they're doing and they can tell you, this is what I'm doing. Okay? Now we need to know the verbs. So if you were ever to wanted to learn Spanish, this right here is the Spanish Bible. It's Barron's 501 Spanish verbs. It has a whole list of verbs, and like I said, there was 103 ways to conjugate it. So on one page right here, this is how to conjugate one verb. It's 103 ways. It's insanity. But you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So that's basically your rudimentary 15-minute Spanish lesson, is how to put verbs into action. AR verbs go to ando. ER verbs and IR verbs go to yendo. How do you say to do or to make in Spanish? Hacer. ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? I'm cooking. I'm speaking. I'm running, right? How do you say run in Spanish? To run is correr. How do you say it? I am running. Yo estoy corriendo. Why? Because it ends in ER. If it ends in ER, it gets yendo at the end of it. If anybody ever told you they learned how to speak Spanish in a couple of weeks living with somebody that spoke Spanish, I'd like to meet them because they're 100 times smarter than me. I can't answer all your questions. I can give you a start. It's a lot of time and effort to learn Spanish. But right now, you just had your first 15-minute lesson.